Thanks, Minister, and thanks to your officials for coming in. Just a couple of questions, Minister. You might just take note of them. In relation to, at the moment, factories here or operators that make meal bins, export them, and indeed the materials used for them for the UK, there's serious problems at getting in the material. Have you met in machinery? I know several, we need machinery, and all of the machinery comes out of the likes of Cambridge auction for the farming communities. There's 1 in 3 tractors coming in at the moment. There's tractors being thrown into yards in England because of problems getting it in. Have you met with Minister Ryan, our Minister for Transport, in relation to the problems? Because like we're hearing, you know, from customs and we're hearing from all departments that there's no problem, but the reality of it is, on the ground with the truck drivers that are bringing in this gear, there is deep frustration. So the question is, have you met with Minister Ryan in relation to that? In relation to the 1 billion that Ireland has got, where do you see that money being given to the small family farm? I know there's 100 million going to the factories, but where do you see the money benefiting the small family farms? In relation to the milk, and this is a question, is there any danger, Minister, or would your department know? I know that contracts have been done by some of our state state agencies here with supplying milk to, say, for example, the HSE or whatever is one of the contracts. Is there any danger that will come under pressure because of Brexit? We hear about seed potatoes. Has stuff been sorted on that? And in Northern Ireland, we're hearing today, unfortunately, as the chairperson outlined, that there's officials are talking about being pulled away, and I know that the EU are pulling away some of their officials for safety issues, and rightly so, on animals and food coming in. What does that create, or does that create a big problem? Tommy Gorman, I heard him last night saying a lot of this is stemming from the problem last week under Article 16 that Ursula von der Leyen and company went. Are you going to get a complete explanation of what went on last week and how the cat was thrown among the pigeons in relation to that? And the last question, or the second last question I have for you, Minister, with Brexit and the pandemic, have you got any word back? I know that you went on media and said that you wrote to the European Commission to extend the deadline for the reduction in the beam. Have you got anything on that? And in relation to, you said you wanted feedback. I read a bit today about the new schemes that you're proposing. I would always say, look, people give out about the Department of Agriculture, but in fairness, they're fairly efficient at giving out money. If you go locally later, I read somewhere where it's going to be on, you know, progress and does something grow or does it not grow and all this crack. If we go down the road of consultants doing locally led schemes, there'll be less money in the farmer's pocket, to be quite frank about it. In fairness to the Department of Agriculture, if you have a scheme that you do X, Y and Z in, you get your money, and in my opinion, in fairness to your department, it's done more efficiently in the overhead costs. Thank you.
Okay, Minister.
Thank you. Thanks, Deputy Fitzmaurice. So in relation to farm machinery and the import, certainly there's ongoing engagement between, very close engagement between my own department officials and transport department officials and revenue in relation to the importation of all products. And I know there has been challenges there around farm machinery as well. There has been a lot of adjustment challenges. And particularly as you know, as people in terms of adjust to the paperwork that's involved now and adjust to ensuring that they've prepared for what's required in terms of meeting the thresholds and the paperwork obligations. So it's something we will continue very closely to try and support importers and exporters on, and in order to do that, it's essential that all departments are working closely together, and certainly that is the situation. It doesn't mean that there aren't challenges, Deputy Fitzmaurice. Unfortunately, there is, and it's a reflection of the fact that this Brexit thing was a really bad idea I think in our views in the first instance, and was only going to lead to challenges from a trade point of view. But we are determined to try and ensure the trade flows as smoothly as it possibly can, and certainly it has gone. I think with everyone working together, it has gone as well as it possibly could in many ways so far. As other previous members have pointed out, scale is down, and it's it will be scaling up. But we will continue to work very closely together now to support everyone across all sectors in meeting the additional challenges that are there. In relation to the €1 billion, the adjustment, the Brexit Adjustment Fund, certainly my objective and everything I do is ultimately to support farm incomes and to ensure that they are as sustainable as they possibly can be, and to maximise them. And in relation to, that's why in terms of the €179 million additional funding in the most recent budget, that was aimed at supporting farmers directly, because that's my #1 commitment. I think it's important in that we do have a robust processing sector as well, and that it is invested in, and that investment is about adding value to the produce that farmers produce at farm level, and trying to ensure that ultimately then that underpins farm incomes in the best way possible. And that certainly will be my objective in terms of how we look and assess and monitor farm incomes in the year ahead. With regard to, you mentioned in relation to milk production, and obviously the challenge there in terms of the mixed milk really is from a non-EU, a third country market point of view, and there are some challenges there. I think the sector is trying to manage them as best they can, and certainly we will, as time evolves as well, look to ensure that they can be that the third country issues can be addressed as trade deals come up for renegotiation. In relation to seed potatoes, there was an issue with seed and where potatoes are now able to be imported into the country. There remains a situation with regard to seed potatoes where the SPS certifications are not provided for. A lot of our seed potato domestically, or that is used domestically, is actually imported from Scotland. So that's a particular challenge. The British government are currently engaged with the European Commission in relation to an application for to be able to cover seed potato to be imported. It remains to be seen how that will transpire. But certainly, I think undoubtedly there is an opportunity, in my view, for us to try and reboot the potato seed industry domestically. Either way, I think certainly in the northwest there was always traditionally, and more in my own county traditionally, a strong tradition of seed potato production. That's one that has fallen away in recent years. But I think certainly I'm looking at the opportunities there as to how we can try and develop that further. But the engagement between the British government and the EU Commission continues in relation to the seed potato import issue. With regard to EU checks in Northern Ireland, certainly I think I'd firstly say that safety comes first, and I think we would all recognise that. There continues to be full documentary checks in relation to imports. I do think it's important that we recognise what the North-South Protocol achieved. Northern Ireland remains constitutionally part of the UK, part of the UK Customs Union. But what the North-South Protocol provides for is the opportunity for Northern Ireland to be fully part of the single market as well. And that leaves Northern Ireland in a very unique position where it has access to both markets. But the North-South Protocol and those checks are important in relation to facilitating that trade in both directions. In relation to, so we will work with the Northern Irish counterparts in relation to supporting that, and I think it's important that we do everybody takes a measured approach in the time ahead. Certainly, the Article 16 debate at European level in the last, at the end of last week wasn't helpful, and certainly I think, as I said earlier, the European Commission has recognised that, and that it was, it was misguided and recognised as a mistake, and certainly it's not something that I think we'll be seeing in the future. In relation to the extension that I've sought to the BEAM scheme to the European Commission, obviously, as you know, Deputy Fitzmaurice, there's a significant number of farmers that are behind in relation to not meeting the 5% nitrogen reduction criteria, which was required of them by the 1st of July this year. My objective is to always do everything I can to support farm incomes and to ensure that farmers are supported from a department point of view and from a policy point of view. This scheme was a welcome one. It was co-funded between Europe and the domestic exchequer, and about over half of farmers are on course to meet the obligations, and they have are on course to reduce by 5%. Some of them would have taken significant action in order to achieve that. Many other farmers wouldn't have joined the scheme in the first instance because they didn't want the 5% would have put them off and would have decided not to avail of it for that reason. So those that are on course to meet the 5% reduction by the 1st of July, they will be unaffected by the request I've made to the European Commission. But what it does, if it's granted, it will allow for a new reference, the option of a new reference year from the 1st of January past to the 31st of December this year, so that farmers can actually reset and achieve the 5% reduction over the course of 2021. And I'm hoping for an early answer from the Commission, but we haven't received confirmation that will be granted yet. But certainly, I'll then be asking, my own department to work with farming representative organisations to engage with farmers to emphasise the importance of them engaging with their agricultural advisors as well in terms of how best to take the action now to minimise the challenge of meeting that 5% reduction over the year ahead. Because if that 5% reduction isn't met, then what it means is that the money which has already been paid out to individual farmers, that will then be repayable, and that's not a situation I want. And that's why I've sought this second chance and second opportunity for farmers to reset and to try and ensure that that money stays in their pockets.